Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methenkamp. If you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. And when I say paranormal, I mean ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, anything supernatural. I want to hear it. Shoot me an email, mythsandmullets@gmail.com. I really do appreciate all the support I've been getting over the last few weeks. If you haven't yet, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, like, comment, share out the show. That's the best way we can grow. If you'd like to contribute in other ways, you can always go over to Buy Me a Coffee, look up Myths, Monsters, and Mullets, and make a small donation there. Tonight's episode is a good one, but if you haven't yet, I do suggest you go back and watch last week's episode, because this is part 2 and a continuation of our conversation with Todd Neiss. In the first episode, he went into his encounter, and this week we go into what happened after the encounter. You know, his research, things like that. Todd also puts on a conference every year called BeachFoot. We go into that a little bit, and I do want to announce that I will be attending this year. Thank you, Todd, for the invite, and hopefully here in a few weeks I'll have an update on what happened at BeachFoot. And with that, let's start the show.
Out in the woods, shadows creep slow. Footprints deep where no man should go. Cold winds howl through hollers and brooks. Whispers of Bigfoot in the way it looks. Myths, monsters, and bullets in the night. Under a pale moon, strange glowing light. Truth out there like a blade it cuts. Myths, monsters, and mullets run amok.
Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. We're back with Todd Neiss. We took a little break, and we're gonna do a part 2 now. So when we left off, we were talking about the guy being chased out by the gorilla. We've talked a little bit about, you know, your encounter, but where has that led you? As far as we talked a little bit about BeachFoot as well, but let's move forward a little bit, and you know where that encounter has led you.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Initially, when, like a lot of people, um, immediately after having the encounter, I immediately had. You go through a range of emotions, and I have literally been able to kind of come up with a profile, if you will, of eyewitness experience in terms of emotions, in terms of how it affects you psychologically. And a lot of it depends on the individual encounter, of course, how close you are. In my case, on that initial experience I had, we were at a fairly safe distance. So it wasn't a matter of mine being, freaked out or feeling like I was in danger. That's kind of a different scenario, but still the same sort of after action report, as we say in the Army, or the AAR, that kind of a personal review of the situation, the encounter. People go through this chain of questions, if you will, that you never thought you would even find yourself asking. And of course, one of the things that ran through my mind is, oh my God, I've seen something, I've witnessed something that is scientifically and historically important. Um, I just happen to be a witness to it. And so your mind starts going through a mental checklist, if you will, of if I were to tell somebody, who would I tell? And furthermore, who would believe me? And what is the consequences uh, of coming forward with something that, to me, is critically important, but to somebody else, it's fascinating, but at the same time, uh, it's one of those things you'd have to see to understand. But there are consequences. So I start going through. God, I don't know fish and wildlife, Forest Service, police, the zoo. I mean, and I didn't know any scientists at the time, and frankly, knowing that there's no way I can prove what I'm saying. It's just me and my word. How critical is that to the world as a whole? And so before I even knew that Sergeant Martin was uh, a co-witness, if you will, uh, I just kind of said, Todd, keep your mouth shut. Um, the consequences to me at the time were put on a scale were negative. Again, I was in the Army National Guard, and as such, now I did 6 years National Guard and then 14 and a half years active duty following that. But being in the National Guard, me and my troops, we had day jobs, right? We'd get together one week in a month and practice our skills and then go back to work. So here I am, a non-commissioned officer and a family man, and I had to, consider how that would be affected, how that would affect my family. And I was a vice president of a shipping company in Portland, Oregon. And, I had worked very hard to build my reputation. And I realized that by coming forward, I'm really putting that at risk. And so I just kind of said, you got to just file that away in the the crazy file. Probably like I guess similar to like people that see UFOs and whatnot. I do believe people have seen things of that nature. I myself have seen things I couldn't explain, but never did I feel compelled to make a big deal of it, let alone to build my life around it like I have. So I decided just, shut the hell up and deal with it, internalize it. And I have to tell you that that's the curse of seeing something like this, because it's something very traumatic. You're traumatized personally, mentally, emotionally, and you can't talk about it. It's a stigma that I understand why 9 out of 10 people don't come forward, and I think that's important to note, because if that is the case, and I think that's generally a pretty accurate number, if I get 20 sightings brought to my attention, and keep in mind that's just me. If I get 20 sightings brought to my attention in any given year, do that times 10. Okay. More than likely there was probably 200 people that year that saw something, and only 20 came forward. And I get it. I get it. The stigma to be really to take the risk of somebody challenging your credibility, your honesty, your mental state of mind. Uh, is it worth that? Putting your reputation on the line in order to tell your story, and that was the context that I was faced with, and like I said, I had uh, decided that no, you just got to have to deal with it. And then I found out that I wasn't alone in what I'd seen. And again, and this is important too. Like I say, being in the National Guard, we're training 1 weekend a month, right? This was early April. Well, as it turns out, the next month's training in early May, again, we're going back to 1993, two other soldiers, independent of one another, came forward and claimed to have seen the same thing that Jeff and I had seen. Now, I don't know in what context, because again, initially I thought Jeff saw them. I didn't really put it together I thought Jeff saw them while I was in that convoy, and then I realized he was working kind of independent of my group. And then when he mentioned the whole walking thing, I honestly, I never did meet the other two individuals. I know of them. We never talked about it because nobody ever said it's that guy and that guy. And it's like, oh, they were wearing green. It's oh, great. But I do know from the credibility of the individual that told me of these other two eyewitnesses that I do believe that was the case. Um, and who knows how many more? Again, when the vast majority of people do keep this to themselves, uh, how many might have witnessed what Jeff and I had? Uh, but so, how did it affect me? Getting back to your question, um, I like I think everybody that has experienced what I did. I think subconsciously you're always looking for an outlet. You're always looking for a recipient that would take your story with some uh, modicum of seriousness. And so I think a lot of people are like constantly kind of keeping one ear open and looking for, maybe somebody who's like yourself who's had that experience. And this is how my story goes. So a couple months after that sighting, and again, I don't know what the odds of this are. I was going through the newspaper in Oregon. It's called the Oregonian. I was going through. I used to read the newspaper front to back. Always been a prolific reader and a very much into current events and what have you. I think a lot of that comes from being in the military. You're always looking to see what's going on in the world. But I'd go through the help wanted ads, the classifieds, all that stuff. And then when I did on this one particular day, uh, I can't make this up. I'm scrolling through, and these like help wanted ads, they're like about half inch by an inch, little tiny. The word I see this bold 7-letter word, Bigfoot, and of course it caught my attention. And when I go to read the fine print, it said something along the lines of local uh, research group, Bigfoot research group, seeking field investigator. Now, mind you, I didn't consider myself an investigator at all. I mean, it's only a couple months after what happened, but I'm like, bingo, there it is. There, and so uh, again, I can't make this up. The phone number was 1-800-Bigfoot, and it's true story. You look it up. Excuse me. So I called it, and it went to a recorder, and I just said, "Hi, my name's Todd. I don't know if you guys are legit or what, but I recently had a sighting, and if you are the real deal, here's my phone number." And it wasn't long before they called me back. Um, and how lucky can you be then to have contacted a group that's headed up by none other than the famous pioneer researcher Peter Byrne?
Really? He put an
Peter,
ad in the paper?
yeah, yeah, he was the put in charge of what was would be, and as far as I know, still is the most well-funded research project on Bigfoot ever. Uh, they had 5 years and a $3 million budget, $3 million, and Peter headed this up. It was based not far from where I lived on the east side of Mount Hood, little town of Parkdale, and yeah, they were funded by uh, the Academy of Applied Sciences out of Boston, and so they took me seriously, and they sent me a questionnaire, a fairly lengthy questionnaire. I actually have a copy of it in my files, uh, and I filled it out, and then they read that, and Peter sent out a guy by the name of Todd Deary, one of his field investigators, to it. This is kind of how Peter rolls. He won't dip his toe in the water until he's sent, uh, some patsy to validate the story. He's not going to waste his time. So I met with Todd Deary. What's crazy about that? He said, "When can you meet?" I said, "Well," I told him when, and because I said I got uh, drill that weekend, and we usually had an open drill, which meant after we were dismissed that evening, we could go stay wherever we wanted to, as long as we were back in formation the next morning. Excuse me. So I said, "Yeah, once I get dismissed, I can meet you." He said, "Well, meet me up where this happened." I said, "Well, you don't understand. You can't get in there. It's privately owned, and they have gates that you can't get around. It's private security, and that they have patrols, security patrols run through there to keep civilians out for just liability reasons." He said, "I don't care. Just meet me at that gate." So I got off. We got dismissed from drill. I went up there and met him, and I'm like, "Well, there's the gate." And he holds up a key and he goes, "Here's the master key." I went, "What?" And he's like, "Don't ask." I'm like, "Okay." Well, it was then that I knew I was dealing with the real deal. I don't know how much, where they, how much power of authority they had, but I knew at that point, he went up, unlocked that gate. We drove through and we turned around and locked the gate behind us, and we were able to go actually to the site, and there were still craters in the in that quarry, and I remember pulling in there, and it's funny because uh, I was kind of nervous. Number one, I'm going into where it actually happened, and I hadn't been there in several months. And two, I'm going in with a complete stranger I don't even know, and it's just two of us, and neither one of us are armed. And we were in this red Jeep they had. We pulled into the quarry, and I pointed to where from the Jeep. I'm like, they were right there. And he jumps out, starts walking that way. He turns around. I'm still in the Jeep, and he's like, uh, "You coming?" And I went, "Just give me a minute." And I had to collect myself. I was like, And we stepped out. The Jeep was turned off. I step out. I could just hear the wind blowing, and I know these sons of bitches are around there somewhere. And we're out there. I went out there with a stranger with no weapon, and yeah, it was interesting. And we did actually, believe it or not, we scouted that area for probably a good hour or more, and we did find some tracks. So he went back and told Peter what we had found. In fact, we heard something that freaked us both out, probably me more than him. But eventually, Peter came out a few weeks later, and I met him again up there. And ultimately, they gave me that key after their investigation. They gave me that master key, which allowed me unfettered access for the next 5 years to go into that area. How many places can you go where you're the only person in there, you lock gates behind you, and at times I'd go through like 3 different gates and lock them all behind me and know that I'm the only person in there.
Wow.
You can't even hear another vehicle. So yeah, that was kind of cool, but fast forward a little bit. So Peter told me about this group that in Portland that met once a month. It was called the Western Bigfoot Society, and it was ran by a guy named Ray Crow. And it was run in the basement of a used bookstore that he owned in North Portland. And I would come to meet a number of people through that. It was kind of like a Bigfoot AA meeting. It was it was like, hi, my name's Todd. I'm a Bigfoot researcher. Or no, I saw Bigfoot. It was like, hi, Todd, in chorus, and it's like, when do I get my coin?
That's what I
My
was getting
two
ready to
month
ask. Did they
coin.
give out little
Yeah,
chips
right,
or whatever?
right. And so that really kind of started me down the road of becoming a little more open publicly about it. And as time went on, it was probably another 2 or 3 months later when Peter contacted me and he said, Todd, he says, sorry, I have to get in character. he goes, uh, he goes, Todd, I'm working with a film crew on a TV show called Unsolved Mysteries, and they're coming up here to Mount Hood, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in coming on the show with me.
Dude, that's
And
like
I'm
dead
like,
on.
oh yeah. Well, I've known we are best friends for years. He just passed away less than 2 years ago, 97 years old. He and I have had a number of investigations and expeditions that we did together. But anyway, I learned to speak Peterese. But anyway, so I'm thinking, oh my God, Unsolved Mysteries. I've watched that show. It's like it's got Robert Stack is the old days, right? 93. Is that guy? And oh my God. And I was initially excited, and then I kind of went back into my shell with, okay, this is a bridge too far. I can have these little, we'll call it BA meetings instead of AA. There's Bigfoot Anonymous meetings in private in the basement of a bookstore. But it's a whole nother thing to now know that I'm going to be on national TV, seen by millions of people, including all my friends, all the people I've never told this story to. And at that time, I had not discussed it with anybody but people, like I said, like the people in this group. And it's like, I almost backed out. That morning, I was about ready to dial his phone number and go, dude, sir, um, I can't do this. I this, but reluctantly, I went ahead, and that's really what started my public appearances in terms of TV shows and documentaries, of which I've done over 30 at least over the years. I've got a few that just came out this year, and I'm working on 2 documentaries currently that have yet to come out. But that's kind of where it went on a public note. And then people started asking me to speak publicly, which was a whole nother thing. I mean, it's one thing to look into a camera and say a few things and with a few people around. It's a whole nother thing to have, several hundred people staring at you. One of the first times that happened was in 1996. There had been an annual gathering uh, at Harrison Lake, British Columbia, called the Sasquatch Symposium. Apparently, it had gone on for several years prior to this. And in 1996, I was invited to come up there and speak. And so I did. I drove up there. Beautiful, beautiful country. Harrison Hot Springs. If you ever get a chance, you got to check it out. It's a glacier fed lake. Beautiful. Anyway, and this is where I would come to meet all of the big guns, the four horsemen of Sasquatchery. This is where I met. I'd already met Peter, but this is where I met Dr. John Benderdoggle. This is where I met John Green and Renata Hinden and Professor Grover Krantz and Jeff Meldrum and so many other big pioneers that people have been doing it for a long time. And here's Todd Neiss, nobody. So they didn't invite me there necessarily as a researcher. I was their token eyewitness, and in my account, because of the circumstances involved, the unusual circumstances, not only the fact that we were, blowing up the forest, but having seen multiple creatures is fairly rare. It's usually individuals, and having multiple eyewitnesses, just made it stand out as a very unique sighting. So they had me come up there, and so I kind of got pushed on the stage. And I remember clearly there's probably 300 people in the audience, and I just said, my name's Todd, and I told my story and proceeded to turn and walk off. I said, thank you very much. I turned to walk off the stage, and the MC goes, oh, no, you don't. You got to take questions. And he kind of shoved me back on the stage, and I went, what? This wasn't in the brochure. Anyway, so I'm out there, and the very first question, I'll never forget it, because I wasn't expecting to do a Q&A in the first place. But the very first person, guy raises his hands, the MC goes, yeah, you in the back. And the guy stands up, and he was a reporter for the Agassiz newspaper, local newspaper. And what he said, I wasn't prepared for, but he goes, you just got done telling us a story about this alleged sighting that you had in Oregon 3 years ago. Give us one good reason why any of us should believe anything you just said. And I was floored. I was like, you could hear crickets. And I don't know where it came from, but I just instinctively said, I was asked to come here to tell what happened to me in 1993. I did not come here to make a bunch of Bigfoot converts. And whether or not you or anybody else in this audience believes one word I just said will never change the truth.
Yeah.
Mic drop. He sat down real quick. And yeah. I was waiting for the standing O that never came, but that was it just came out because I was kind of I was kind of mad because I I thought what I was doing took a lot of bravery on my part. And when the first thing that happens is I get attacked, that was just my instinct to go, what? So yeah, and then subsequently I was asked to return the next 3 years. So from 96, 97, 98, and 99, I spoke at the Sasquatch Symposium in British Columbia. Again, rubbing elbows with people. Yeah, I hate to say it, I didn't even know who the hell they were. And when I finally did realize who they were, I was like, oh. And became friends with them. And I didn't just meet Renee Hinden or John Green or Dr. Uh, Professor Grover Cranston. I became friends with them. I spent time with them. Yeah, I got their autograph. Yeah, I got the picture, the selfie. Uh, but I became friends with them. I met uh, Bob Gimlin at Bluff Creek in 2000, and I got to become friends with him. Bob's still alive, right?
Yeah.
The famous 1967 Patterson Gimlin film. They were filmed at Bluff Creek. I've been down to Bluff Creek a couple of times, and the first time I met Bob down there, and we became close friends. The guy sends me Christmas cards every year, and I've been to church with him. I mean, I know Bob.
Wow.
Very honest man. Guarantee. I get people to this day go, "Do you think he was lying?" I'm like, you spend 2 minutes with a guy and you know you couldn't pay him to lie. But anyway, so this is where everything kind of went, and it's just, you know, got the ball rolling. And before I knew it, 2 months later, I was doing a documentary with the BBC called To the Ends of the Earth, met more people. So over the course of time, I met a lot of the who's in Bigfoot research, and I guess in the long run became one. And it's probably the catalyst of where I came up with the concept for Beachfoot. Beachfoot is I know it's a corny name, but it's a corny name for a very serious event, and the only event of its kind, because it's not. So I had talked at conferences all over the country. I just spoke in Stillwell, Oklahoma. I'm not bragging. I'm just so you know, I've got 8 conferences I'm speaking at this year.
Oh, wow.
I'll be speaking in Fouke, Arkansas at the Fouke Monster Festival here at the end of this month. I'll be speaking in Louisiana later, Washington State, twice in Oregon, again in Oklahoma. Uh, and it's just turned into what it is. But in the course of meeting all these people, I learned early on, and keep in mind when I first got into this, the internet was just coming on. There was not really much in the way of social media like it is today. And I liked pretty much everybody I met. There's very few well, I do have a blacklist, but we won't go there. Matthew Orton. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that guy. Holy cow.
Yeah, that guy. No. But anyway, what I noticed early on, and it was probably in part due to the lack of social media and lack of communication, what I witnessed was a very uh, a very unorganized groups of people either working independently as a researcher or in little groups all over the place. And along with that came a lot of rivalries, a lot of jealousies, a lot of competition and a lot of bad blood. And for instance, I knew that John Green and Renee Hinden hated Peter Byrne, and it was mutual. And there's three out of the four what we call the giants, the four horsemen of Sasquatchery. And over here is Professor Grover Krantz, who could give a hell about anybody, but boy, these are, and it was mostly petty jealousy. There's more to it that I won't go into, but certain things that happened, including it got physical at times. But what struck me is I like John, I like Renee, I like Peter, and they hate each other, but they never met. And furthermore, if these jackasses would ever put their notes together, my God, there's 60, 70 years of collective research. We may have solved this thing by now, this enigma, this mystery. But no, they're all keeping everything close to the vest. And it wasn't just them. It was other little groups that popped up, the BFRO and Ohio folks. And you had all these little cliques. And so one day I was at a friend's house, and he had he had several acres, a big, beautiful park-like setting. And it just struck me. I was thinking, if these guys ever met each other, I think, they would come to like each other. And so I thought, and really, what would it be like to get all of these famous people, these people that have been doing it for decades, together in the same room, lock the door, put them in the same room at the same time, force them to, share, what a brain trust of data would be there. And then I thought, I know it would be better than that. It would be to get these people together in a very rural, rustic setting for 3 or 4 days, 2 or 3 nights around a campfire with an adult beverage in their hand, and make them like each other, make them get to know each other on a personal basis. So I came up with the idea. I called it BeachFoot because my sighting was in the Coast Range, and obviously beach, Bigfoot, BeachFoot. I don't know what it is. I come up with this, operation whatever. I come up. I got to have crazy monikers for different things. But anyway, so I came up with BeachFoot. And that's exactly what it was all about. It was about, so I started dialing for dollars. I started calling around the horn saying, hey, I got this idea. Oh, it's a conference. No, it's not a conference. It's nothing, no. First of all, I have no intention to make any money at all. All I want to do is get my friends together, get them around a campfire for 2, 3, 4 days, and chill. And yeah, it's going to cost a little money. I'll put together a little budget, maybe we'll do a barbecue, just have some fun, hanging out, casual, and, chillax. And so in 2008, the first BeachFoot came into fruition, and it was pretty cool because I was able to get Peter Byrne, Ron Moorhead, Cliff Barackman, long before finding Bigfoot. In fact, I don't think he knew how to spell Bigfoot when I met him. Dr. Robert Pyle, John Kirk III, Thomas Steenberg, published author out of British Columbia. All these, I think we probably about 35 of us, 36 of us that first year at this very site where I came up with the idea. And we held it there for 2 years, and it started to grow. Again, it's important to understand, I don't make any money at this. I never have. I could make a lot of money, trust me. But as it grew, I decided I need to nip this in the bud. I need to limit it because it's going to lose its character. It's going to lose its flavor if 1,000 people show up, which easily could have happened. I mean, today we're getting conferences with 5,000 people showing up. It's ridiculous. But so I limited it at 100 people. And unlike any other conference, number one, there's several things that make it unique. One, it's limited to 100 people. Number two, it's invitation only. And I'm the guy. I have the golden tickets. Number three, I make no money. I count heads. I got to say I got 100 people. I say, okay, I got to rent a park, cost me X. I got to, I'm going to put together a barbecue for Saturday afternoon. We're going to have door prizes. People bring a bunch of stuff to contribute to that. I've got to, you know, so I come up with a budget and I divide it by 100 and I say, oh, it's going to be $65 each. And that just pays for their campsite and whatever. And half the time I went into the red. Very, very seldom did I ever walk away with, 100, $200 in excess. And that doesn't count for the, hundreds of hours of my time in putting it together, organizing it, whatnot. Number four, and I think really interestingly, is I have the only conference that brings top rated researchers and public speakers who get paid to speak all over the country, pay me. Okay. And volunteer to speak. In fact, this year I've got 6 top line researchers, and we're talking several PhDs, and I've had like 9 or 10 people want to speak. I'm like, sorry,
Wow.
we don't have enough time. But it's the only. And think about this: we've had people come. I kid you, not just across the U.S. and Canada, but from England, Australia, Russia, New Zealand. We're hoping to get a guy in here from Papua New Guinea this year. Imagine what the cost is for them, the thousands of dollars it cost them just to get there. So my token, hey, it's 90, I think we're up to like $95 this year after 18 years. Still, I've
Wow.
kept it under $100.
You can't even get a
But for
hotel
me, it's a
room for that.
no, no, and it's to me, it's a labor of love. It's my way of giving back to the community, and it's had the desired effect I've wanted, is to get these people who would normally be, competitors or rivals, to get them to chill out and relax. And I'll tell you what, after 3 days, I'd say, because I expanded it to 4 days. After 4 days and 3 nights in the woods, no showers, no cell phone service. Everybody's pretty ripe by the end of that day. You want to get to know, if you want to get to know somebody, spend 4 days together with no showers. And, everybody's growing a stubble and starting to stink, and it's like, so you can't get any more personal than that. But sadly, this year will be the final year for BeachFoot. This will be the grand finale, if you will. And that's due in part to the fact that I've now moved to Arkansas, and it's cost prohibitive. I mean, I feel stupid for saying that because I know how much other people spend to get there. We've got our 100 already, and it's they spend a hell of a lot more to get there than it does for them to get in the game, and just to help me cover the expenses. But it cost me, I'm going to drive out there and back this year. Last year I flew out there, but it still cost me a couple $1,000s. And I'm not about to put that into the budget and charge people for when they're paying out of their pocket to get there. So it just wouldn't be fair. So last year cost me close to $2,000. to go out there
Wow.
and do it. This year I'm driving. I've got a 33-foot travel trailer. I'm going to haul out there and back, and that's probably 12 to 15 days on the road and all the fuel and campsites. I can't keep doing that.
Right.
So I this one is billed as the grand finale, and it's going to be big. It's going to be good. It's going to be private. I'm not going to make a dime on it. In fact, it's going to cost me, but I'm willing to bear that because I know everybody else pays a lot of money. I've got people coming this year from Florida to New York to Maine, all the way, California, wherever, Canada. So, uh, yeah, so that's the kind of the chronology of how things have gone since those stupid 25 seconds totally uprooted my reality. And yeah, so it's kind of a hobby gone bad, but you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Right. And it led you to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I mean, what that's like got to be the pinnacle of your
Well,
whole
this
career.
is I I'm speechless.
You know who's not speechless, and that's Matthew.
Oh, tell me about it.
Well, Todd, I tell you what, this has been an honor having you on my show,
Well,
and
thank you. I've
may,
enjoyed it.
maybe maybe after this final Beachfoot, you can come back on and tell us how it went, and we can have some more conversation because I feel like you have a lot more.
Oh
We
dear
didn't
God.
even hardly scratch the surface, I don't think, of all your research and everything. So, but why don't you tell
No, and
every
I started writing a book. I've been, it's long overdue, and I'm like, how am I going to get 32 years into 500 pages? It's just impossible. So I've decided because I started looking, it's like every chapter is a book, and so what I've decided is I'm gonna come out with a series of books, probably 10 in total, just to try to cover everything. Because it's and again, how are we gonna how do I get it all to squeeze into an hour and a half with you? And it's there. Oh boy, yeah, there's a lot we could talk about. Let's do it again, and I really hope to meet you in person sometime. It's been fun. I appreciate you having me on.
I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure at some point I'm going to end up down there with Matthew at some point. So, yeah, why don't you tell everybody once again where they can find you?
Sure. Little uh, shameless plug. My email address is americanprimate at AOL.com. That you can certainly write there, write to me directly there. I didn't even mention that I do run a nonprofit organization called the American Primate Conservancy. And if you'd like to check into that, I have a Facebook page and a website. Obviously, the Facebook page is American Primate Conservancy on Facebook. The website is americanprimate.org, so americanprimate.org. Um, yeah, so I'm out there. I'm pretty easy to find. If anybody has any questions or would like to just chat, feel free to reach out to me, either email or through my Facebook page is my personal one is obviously just my name, but yeah, yeah, I'm pretty accessible. So, but I appreciate the plug. Who knows where that leads?
Yeah. And like I said, I really do appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have to do this again. Absolutely.
All right.
So we will. And for those watching, if you have a paranormal encounter, have a Bigfoot encounter, first contact Myths, Monsters, and Mullets, and then you can contact Todd Neese because that's the pecking order. But until next time, I'll talk
There
to
you
you
go.
later. Gotta go. And that's it for tonight. I'd like to thank Todd Neese for coming on the show And if you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Good night, everyone.
Shadow in the pines, lurking in the dusky air. Bigfoot stomps through the woods like he don't care. Lights in the sky flash green then blue. Aliens descending with a secret or two. Whispers in the breeze, cold fingers down your spine. Ghosts in the graveyard, twisting through time. Eyes wide open in the dead of night. The myths and monsters giving one hell of a fright. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methenkamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methenkamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Down by the bayou, you hear a raspy growl. Swamp gas glowing as the coyotes howl. A UFO zipping just above the trees, grabbing hold of wonder like a southern summer breeze. Some call it crazy, others call it a lie. But listen real close as the truth passes by. The lines are blurry, the story's bold. John Methenkamp spins them into southern gold. Apparitions dancing in the smoky haze. Legends of the deep south told in hollers and bays. Bigfoot runs free, chasing shadow dreams. Aliens keep secrets like moonlight beams. No. Down by the bayou, you hear a raspy growl. Swamp gas glowing as the coyotes howl. A UFO zipping just above the